Wellness Series webinar, Staying Calm When the World Is Not. My name is Jenna Mvalo, and I'm the Director of Patient Advocacy and Community Engagement at MGFA, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. We're thrilled to have such a great showing for today's event, and we ask that you remain on mute throughout the presentation. Please submit your questions via the Zoom chat located on the Zoom menu bar, and we'll answer them during the Q&A segment. If by chance we miss your question or don't have time to answer it, I'll give you an answer via email after the webinar. Just to let you know, today's session will be recorded and available online. Now I'd like to give special thanks for the support of our Wellness Series sponsors, Alexion, Argenx, Momenta, and UCB. We've got a great presentation ahead, and without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, MGFA Board Chair and former MGFA CEO, Nancy Law. Nancy has been a featured speaker at numerous national and international conferences and is an experienced social worker who brings years of knowledge in both resiliency and stress management. Nancy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jenna, and welcome everyone. It's always fun to get together with other members of the MG community. I think many of you who know me know that I've been an MG patient for 25 years almost now, since my diagnosis. So I understand, while all of our journeys are different, I think we all can relate to each other as we're going through the adjustments to having myasthenia gravis. So this is a particularly stressful, uniquely stressful time in all of our lives, where the world seems out of control and a little bit scary. This is why one of the reasons we're putting this series together is to really help us to think about ways to maintain wellness and cope with stress during this COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a presentation on stress management, but also an introduction and overview for our series coming up. So I won't try to cover everything today because we'll have lots of sessions later. So some of these are going to be teasers, but I think you should be able to walk away with a few techniques. So we want you to be able to leave this understanding more about the causes of stress, to understand your own personal stress level, what's stressing you out, and also to learn specific techniques about how you may be able to manage some of those stressors in your life. So here's our model, and what this gives you is a kind of an easy acronym, a way to, sort of a useful mnemonic device that you can employ when you are feeling your stress level rising and you're like, what do I do about this? I think, if you, and these will be available to you afterwards, by the way, so don't feel like you've got to scribble and take notes, but this is a way you can walk through and say, okay, this is making me crazy. What can I do? And the four elements of this technique are change. Can you change the stress? Can you accept it if you can't change it? Can you let go of things that are making your life more stressful? And can you really learn some things around managing your lifestyle? So let's go ahead and get started, talk about a few techniques, and then we'll also remember that we can continue to learn as our series goes on. So change. Change is really your first and often your best option to manage stress. Sometimes even small changes can make a huge difference. And being able to initiate change is really empowering. It puts you in control, and feeling out of control is one of the strongest factors in creating stress. So here's some questions that you can ask yourself. And I'm going to ask you now to think of something in your life that is stressing you out, something that is really causing you anxiety, causing you worry, causing you anger. Unless you're leading a perfect life, there's probably something. And I'm going to ask you to just keep this in mind as we walk through some of these different techniques and see if you can apply some of these things. And sometimes you're going to say, no, that's not going to work. But there's probably something along the way that may help you. So the first, these change questions, are really, there's some pretty simple things. Can I prevent this? Can I just not have it happen at all? Can it be delayed? Were you planning a cruise? Maybe the best thing to do is we know the cruise industries is shut down right now, but, is go ahead, cancel, or say, I'm going to delay this for another year. I'm not even going to think about it. Can something else be substituted? Can you do something that's not quite as scary? Other kinds of things that are stressing us out may be something we've committed to or expectations others have of us. So does it really have to be done? Can I just avoid it? Can I confront the stressor? Can I get help? And can I say no? So I want to delve into a couple of those a little more, a little more depth. One of the hardest things sometimes for us to do is to confront another person who is the stressor in our life, that it's somebody else's behavior that is really causing your stress level to rise. And I wanted to give you another little acronym here that may help you, because it's hard and we sometimes wait and we don't talk to another person until our stress level has risen so high that we end up exploding and it's impossible to just have a good conversation. So try this before you get too before it begins to really drive you crazy. Describe the situation to the person and express your feelings. When you don't start to get ready early enough and we are late, it makes me embarrassed, it makes me frustrated with you, and it turns me into a nag. Ask for what you need. I want to ask you to just start to get ready 15 minutes earlier so that we really can leave on time. I know it doesn't bother you so much to be late, but it bothers me a lot, and I don't feel good about this. So please, can you just do that for me? And then hopefully, if you get a positive answer, you can tell the person how much you appreciate their willingness to help you with this, and that it shows that they care about your feelings. So reinforce the good thing that the other person does. Another thing we're often not very good at is asking for help. So this is a time when you have to be, and we're going to talk about this, I think, a lot throughout this series, put aside that need to be the super person. For those of us who are type A's, who were drivers, who were the kind of people who got things done, who were the kind of people that other people depended upon, it's really hard when we're living with MG to be able to put that aside and ask for help. But there's some techniques that we need to employ that work for us when we ask for help. You can ask for help from somebody else by explaining your situation, telling them about MG, letting them understand how this affects you. Specify what needs to be done and why. Maybe it's a household chore that's just driving you crazy that you can't get to. You're so used to being able to keep things, done, the lawn mowed, or, the kitchen cleaned, or the meals done at the right time, that you expect yourself. And when you can't do it anymore, it's so frustrating. So, tell the person why it's important to you. And how long it may take. What are you really asking of them? I just need a couple hours of your time to help me clean out this closet. Get a commitment. But then, this is the hard part for us, let them do the work their way. How many of us, ask for a teenager to do something and then complain about the way they did it because they didn't do it your way. They didn't do it the way we would have done it. So that's one of the most important things when we're trying to get somebody else to help us, is to be able to let them do it their own way and not sit and micromanage that task. And then, of course, show appreciation. One of the things that can happen to us with MG is that, when we can't do things the way that we always did them before, when we can't manage things, we forget that one of the things we can do for others is show them how much we care. And that's a way for us to really have an exchange where it's valuable to the other person to feel appreciated. So Other pathways to change, focusing again on time management, understanding your priorities. Sometimes we get, it feels like our lives manage us, that things that are urgent seem to be, coming in our face, and versus really what's important. So, that time when you feel like you've got to get 6 things done and out the door, and what you really need is to spend time with your kid who's saying, can you come read to me? Those are the things that are important. And sometimes we need to remember that it's okay to let some things that seem so urgent go. Does it really have to be done now? If you don't get something done, that people ask for grace, let people know, I'm sorry, my kid needed me and I didn't get to what I had told you I would do. And of course, one of the ways to prevent all of this is learning to say no. And you may have to practice this in front of a mirror. It's like, no, 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 no. It's hard for you to even get that out of your mouth. But this is important for us in life, is to really understand how much we can manage. And that's a great stress preventer. And remember substitution. Complex is not always better than simple. Maybe in the past you've always made, great grandmother's 4-layer cake for somebody's birthday. But if it needs to be Costco, if you need to pick it up at Kroger, it's still a cake. Most people won't remember. Figure out what's essential and what's really memorable. And don't forget, take breaks. You've got to give yourself some time. So, can we change everything? Certainly not. Are we able right now to change the situation where we're living in the midst of a global pandemic? No, we don't have that power. So here's other things that we know we're not going to be able to change. This form says, I don't know that you can see it, but it says how much money, it's a tax form, how much money did you make last year? Send it in. We have taxes and we're always going to have taxes, and some things seem inevitable. But one of the things that we do have control over, even if we don't have control over what happens to us, we do have control over our perception. And the role of perception is incredibly important in how we see our lives and in managing stress. There's a quote here from a Greek philosopher, I won't even try to pronounce his name, that says men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of them. And this picture below is supposed to be an ocean or a lake, maybe one of the Great Lakes. And a family arrives, and 2 families arrive, and they, set up on the beach, and one family can hardly even wait to put their towels down before they're running for the water. The other family maybe will go in up to their ankles. Maybe they'll enjoy a little bit of swimming, but there's 2 different views of this same ocean. One family thinks of it as a playground. The waves are fun. It's, you can snorkel, you might see sea creatures. There's all kinds of things. It's just a playground. It's a wonderful place. And for the other family, that same ocean is dangerous. There could be sharks, there could be riptides, there could be stinging jellyfish. There's all kinds. This is just not, you don't want to go too deep in that ocean because it's a scary place to be. It's the same ocean, but we see it different ways. So do you see yourself in some of these negative thought habits? All or nothing thinking. So, the ocean is always dangerous. Not always, but, there can be dangers. But when you start to think in terms of always and nevers, and especially when you start to accuse other people of that, you are always late. You never help me with the dishes. You never help me with the housework. You never go out and help me weed. That becomes a frustrating thing. Very few things are really always and never, and we're much better to use to really work with incidences to say, when you did this yesterday, that hurt my feelings, rather than you always or you never. The negative mental filter is really important as well. When you start to, if you make up your mind about something and you start to see it in a negative way, it's very natural for you to perpetuate that feeling by continuing to find bad things about it. So, if you decide, that you don't like your workplace, every day when you go in, you begin to find different things that you dislike, and that you that keeps continuing to perpetuate negativity. So, if you begin to in any situation, begin to look at the positives. Maybe your favorite neighbor moved away and the new neighbors, aren't the same neighbors, but maybe you can find some things that are positive about them. Bad words for us are should, ought, must to, have to, need to. It's one of the most frustrating things when I get a memo that says, or you call about something, where you're calling, where you've purchased something and it's not satisfactory, and the person says, well, you need to. And it's just like, people don't have to need to do anything except pay taxes and eventually to die. I mean, it rarely are there things that we need to do. And the shoulds are really hard on us too. When you start to apply that to other people, you should do this. I should quit smoking. And applying that to yourself. I should be a better housekeeper. Jumping to conclusions and fortune telling things, like your kid comes home with a D on a project. Oh my gosh, she's never going to get into college now. So, and catastrophizing, and this is an easy time right now in the midst of COVID-19. And for those of us who remember 9/11, I think we felt some of those same things, that it was so oppressive because you think the world will never be the same. And when something really bad happens, a significant loss, the death of someone you love, the global pandemic, the unrest that we've seen, and what we've had to face in the ways of unfairness and unhappiness, it's easy to think you'll never be happy again. And that kind of catastrophizing can really put us in a position of not being able to move forward. So that leads one of the things with catastrophizing is begets us there is worrying. So I ask you, if you were to sit down and make a list, and you can do this afterwards, how long is your current list of worries? Are you really a worrier? Are you really only worried about one or two things, or do you have about 11 different things you're worrying about? And do you wake up in the night and worry? Do you feel really anxious about the future? It's an easy thing to do right now. So, but you can take charge of your worrying. So I ask yourself to take the worry questions. I think somebody might not be on mute. If you'd all please mute, that would be really helpful. Ask yourself the worry questions. What's the worst that can happen? How likely is it that the worst will happen? And if the worst happens, how will I cope? So one thing that's really important, there's actually studies that show 80% about what we worry about won't happen, and 10% will happen no matter what we do. So if you think of it that way, am I worrying about something I can do anything about? I can remember once, I had very tall daughters. They're both 5'11" now. And I can remember a friend saying to me, aren't you worried about Sarah being so tall? And I remember looking and thinking, of all the things I can think to worry about, this is one thing I know I am not going to do anything about. Not that I didn't also think it was lovely that she was going to be tall, because I'm short and always wished I was taller. But even so, it's just like, you're not, the last thing you can worry about is what height your child is going to grow to be. That's pretty much already done. So, those kinds of things that can cause worry that there's nothing that you can do about. It's best, to just shrug, put aside, and accept. We can focus on those 10 things we might be able to do something about, and then we can talk about change, lifestyle management, and other things. So let's go to the third, that third letter in our CALM acronym, letting go of stress-causing thoughts and behaviors. So these are things that we do to ourselves. we hold on. We hold on to feelings, past disagreements. We relive injuries and insults. Is there a grudge in your life that causes you stress and unhappiness? We hold on to beliefs that the world should be a certain way, that it's not fair. It's not fair. I should have gotten myasthenia gravis. Well, it isn't fair. The world isn't fair. But we hold on to sometimes beliefs that things should be a certain way. And we hold on to people. You can remember maybe a time when your favorite coworker at your office went on to another position, retired, left to have a baby, moved out of town, and you feel like it's never going to be the same. That was my confidant. That was the person that I could count on. And the new person comes in, and if we're holding on so much to that old person, to the people who were there before, that it's really hard for us to move on and enjoy perhaps some new acquaintances. And we also we hold on to things. Is your closet full of clothes that probably don't fit into now and haven't for 2 years and are going to be out of style pretty soon anyway? Why are we holding on to those things? Do we feel like we can't move because where will we put grandmother's dining room table, even though we really want to downsize, but we can't get rid of some of those family heirlooms that we don't want our life to be dominated by things that can cause us stress. So letting go, back again to letting go of the superwoman expectations of self and others, letting go of attachments, the shoulds in our life, unrealistic expectations of others and ourselves. And I like this little guy who's next door. He said, I would have gotten away scot-free if I had just, I'm sorry, I can't see the slide. There we go. If I had just gotten rid of the evidence, but shoot, I'm a pack rat. So we are who we are in many ways. I think one of the ways to cause ourselves less stress is to understand that we're all flawed. We're not perfect at everything. You're focus on maybe the things that are really wonderful about yourself, and focus less on those parts of yourself that are frustrating to you. Can you make changes? Sure, but don't just beat yourself up because you're not quite the superwoman or superman that you expect yourself to be. One of the things that is really perhaps the hardest and most important to learn to let go of is anger. Are you angry? And these are some of the things you'll feel. Are you irritable frequently? Do little things bother you? Do you yell? Are you sarcastic? Do you sometimes let go of control and say things you later regret? Do you hear people say about you that you have a short fuse? So those might be some of those things that lead you to say, I know there's anger in my life. I feel that, and it's eating at me. And it is. If you're feeling a lot of anger, it increases physical stress symptoms. This is a time when it's easy to be angry. It's to be angry that there's this global pandemic that is changing your life and scaring you, and yet does that anger really do you any good? In fact, we used to think, and you used to hear, that if you just get it off your chest. So people would say, I blow up and I yell and then I'm fine. Well, notwithstanding the person who got yelled at, who is now dealing with stress at a nuclear level, the person who blew up is also experiencing symptoms of anger, and physical symptoms that go with that. So eventually, this can really cause, being angry can cause significant physical and emotional and interpersonal difficulties. So one of the most important things to know about anger is that it's a secondary emotion. It comes after another feeling like hurt, powerlessness. And we actually use anger to protect us from more painful feelings. We can't resolve or accept those feelings until we handle the anger. So one of the things that may help you is to ask yourself, if you start to feel your anger rising, what's scaring or hurting me? Who or what scared or hurt me? And do I feel helpless and powerless? And begin to address those feelings to put yourself more in a situation of control, of able to address that person who hurt you, and to make sure that you're safe and that you don't have things that are really scaring you because you're afraid. Remember that anger is a choice. You know, we can't control what happens to us always. Sometimes we can, but not always. But we can nearly always control how we react to those feelings. You know, I'll go back for a minute and say, you know, over the years, I've met a lot of people with MG. And one of the things that's so striking to me is how many times I've heard people say, you know, I would never have chosen to get this disease. I would never have chosen to have it in my life. But in many ways, it's been enriching. I've met people and developed relationships that would never have happened if this hadn't been in my life. And this is, can maybe be true of other things that you can think of, things that you wish had not happened, but where there has been, you know, some positive, some silver lining that's come out of that situation. So finally, taking us to our final M, and this is really about managing your lifestyle with MG in now the midst of a global pandemic. So you know, the choices you make are in many ways your own. And we're going to spend a lot of time in these next sessions on talking about, you know, positive versus negative coping. You know, when we're stressed out, negative, you know, there are things we can do that relieve our stress for a short period of time. Like, you know, I think I would feel a lot better if I just had this chocolate cake. Or, you know, I'm going to come home from that stressful day at work and the first thing I need is that beer. And or I'm just going to sneak out back for a cigarette, you know, whatever it may be. And here in Colorado, I don't even want to tell you what people are using all the time to cope with some of the stress. But those are, you know, those kinds of negative coping techniques help us maybe in the short run, but can cause you know, more stress and more difficulties later on. So we're going to talk about positive ways to cope, you know, about letting go of some of your type A characteristics and taking time for yourself. So some of the next sessions I wanted to mention to you are about exercising and staying active at home, which has, you know, been hard for a lot of us. I know I've missed my water aerobics a lot, and it's sometimes to find ways. But I met a person the other day who said she'd taken up chair yoga. You know, that was something she could do at home. She found YouTube videos. So Dr. Charlene Hafer-Mako, who is wonderful on exercise, is going to give us some tips. We're going to look at what the techniques of occupational therapy can be that will help us to really do things better and make life easier. And there's a very special session coming up for those of you who are receiving infusion therapy at home, IVIG, Solaris, whatever that might be. There is a standard of care during COVID-19 that's been established by a number of experts in the field, and we're going to have an expert nurse who's going to share that with you so that you know that what to expect if you're having infusion and what are the safe procedures that you ought to be seeing in your home infusion. We're going to have some talk about hacks for living, you know, things that make it easier to live with MG. And then stress, anxiety, worry, and coping. So we're going to go in more into those techniques in more depth than I've been able to do this time, as we've just been giving you perhaps a teaser. And I think there's some others coming down the way that our staff, Jenna and Dova, thank you so much for your work on this, that our staff have been, are working now on lining up speakers. So we'll continue to share with you as those come along. We haven't picked like one set date or time, because we know people's schedules vary. So we're gonna work with our speakers, and we're also going to move things around. So we'll have some in the daytime, perhaps some in the evening, some on a Tuesday, some on a Friday, so that people can vary their schedules, and everything, of course, will be recorded. So finally, and then I think we can go on to questions. I just want to mention the quality of resiliency, because this is what we're really working for with stress management and many of these other techniques we've talked about. Bad things are going to happen. And resiliency is really about your ability to bounce back. So believing in yourself. I believe so much in the strengths perspective. We all have strengths. Believing that you are a strong and a competent person is half the battle. And you'll be able to find ways to overcome some of the difficulties that you're facing. And again, you can increase resiliency by learning stress management and other techniques. And I love this guy off to the right. This horse's, you gotta love his attitude. As his rider falls not to a good place, he says, "Shoot, I'm gonna go back and try this again." So even if something we do is almost disastrous, we get second chances in life to make a difference. So hang in there, and there's a lot of good things left to happen. So I think we have time for questions. Jenna, do I turn things over to you?
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Thank you for that talk. That was great. We do have a couple questions that popped up on the chat. So one of them is, how can we manage the differences between intrinsic and extrinsic stressors with MG?
Well, that's a good question. And it's a big question. So I'm trying to think what particularly, if there are particular examples that you're thinking about. So, certainly, when we talk about how almost all stress is the result of perception, what is part of that almost is physical stress. So, pain, the kind of weakness that you may feel with MG that is not something you're just able to overcome by thinking about it. So, if you're thinking in that sense of intrinsic stress, then, change is the way that we need to persist in finding appropriate medical care, the best help that we can get, and can move something that allows us to move forward to a better place with MG. One of the things about MG is it's not like every other condition. It is that it can get better, and it can get better with good care. We're seeing new medications coming down the pipeline. We're seeing, we know and can identify MG experts, and you can find those using our website. Some people may have to travel to see an expert, but I think you don't give up on trying to manage those physical symptoms, because that can make a huge difference. Handling the external stressors that come into our life, a lot of that is really how we react, and that is more the role of perception and being able to apply, techniques to say, yes, I don't like this. It's a bad situation, but here are things that I can do. Whether it be, I feel, as we're starting to see the world open up again a little bit, and we're afraid, many of us with MG, but, can we manage to go to some activities and figure out a way to return to some normalcy by taking safety precautions like wearing masks, making sure the people we with are wearing masks, keeping social distance, choosing the places that we go and what we do. I'm not sure if that's exactly, I'm got exactly at that, but if not, ask a follow-up question.
Thanks, Nancy. Another one I have is, I find when I'm stressed about something else, I lash out at my husband when he's not the reason. He's very supportive, caring, and helpful with my MG and my current quarantine situation due to low immune system levels with Rituxan treatment. How can I manage that? He is about the only person who I see personally.
Well, hello, you're human. So, and that really goes back in many ways to trying to manage the situation before you reach the point of anger. So, when you think about when do you lash out, what is it really that preceded that? It's anger. Anger is your way of handling that emotion that you feel helpless about, that you're scared about, where you're worried, where you're afraid, and where you're out of control. And it's MG makes us feel that way. It's something that's so hard sometimes to control, and the frustrations are normal. So, there may be some techniques that can help you. First of all, as you begin to feel your anger rising, sit down for a little while, think about, even with paper and pen in hand, to say, what's really getting at me right now? And then you may be able to go to that, which sounds lovely that husband is supportive, that you may be able to go and say, I feel angry and I feel like yelling and I don't want to yell at you. So can I just tell you how I'm feeling right now? And, that may be a much more acceptable way for somebody to be able to listen to you. So, because you don't feel good after you blow up and lash out, it makes you feel horrible too. So, it's going to happen. You're human. We all are, but there may be some things that you can do ahead of time just by remembering that it's the other things that are the really hard emotions. And, sometimes just, if there's somebody that you can really talk to about that, whether it be a counselor, a professional counselor, a religious counselor, a really good friend, a sister, a brother, a parent, just a listening ear, so that you have a chance to manage those difficult things and those difficult feelings that are normal with chronic illness.
That's great. Thanks, Nancy. This next question is, more MG related. Do people with MG have swallowing issues?
Certainly. Many people with MG do have swallowing issues. And it's important that your doctor knows that and you're talking about it. Now, finding the right treatment and therapy for your MG such that you're stronger generally can help with that. But it may also help, and interestingly enough, the healthcare professionals who handle speech and swallowing issues are often speech therapists. So because those things, those go together, those bulbar muscles go together. So, your doctor may be able to make a referral, or you may be able to find somebody who specializes in swallowing issues to really talk with you about what kinds of things can you do to manage that at the same time that you're managing your MG to make you better all over, because it's serious, it's dangerous, and it can impact your ability to keep weight on, to enjoy meals, and of course it's really very important for you to eat the right kinds of foods, and your doctor can advise you on that too. But it's certain things that are hard or chunky, can be more difficult. Very thin liquids can sometimes be harder than thicker ones, interestingly enough. So soft foods are certainly easier than trying to chew up steak or raw carrots. So, again, be conscientious about your diet as well.
Thanks. There's a couple of questions or comments related to it being a stressor that people are going out in public and not adhering to some of the mandates to wear their face masks. So how can people manage the stress and anxiety that comes as a result of that situation?
Well, that's a tough one. Because it, certainly here you are a person potentially with a compromised immune system, and the people's lack of consideration around that can put you in the situation where you feel you can't go out anymore. So, it's like somebody else's lack of consideration is really affecting your life. What can we do? I'm not certainly advocating necessarily that you confront people without masks when you run into them. I think the best thing to do if you see them is to just avoid them and stay as far away as you can from people who are not not minding the mandates that we're now hearing. And another possible thing is to take some action, and that's to reach out to your public officials. So, we just saw a mask mandate here in my state in Colorado, just yesterday, I guess. So starting midnight tonight, as our cases, like in many states, are rebounding after we've been able to flatten the curve. So, I know it's frustrating, hopefully the fact that certain stores have also, I saw Target and Walmart, and I think Kroger's and some others have said, no, we're enforcing don't enter our store without a mask mandate. So, I think we can try to influence our public officials. We can try to influence our commercial entities to say, I'd like to shop at your store, but I'm going to this one because they're mandating masks. So it is frustrating. It feels like it forces you inside, but you have to take care of yourself and follow the rules and that are best for you, and you may not, because of the consideration of others, be able to have as much freedom as you would like during this time. And it's sometimes these are things that you just have to accept and say and realize that these are different people feel differently, and we do the best we can to try to cope with that. I don't know if that's a very good answer, because I'm not sure I know how to quite handle my frustration over that either. But sometimes things are what they are.
Yeah, very true. Nancy, the next question, what do you do when you get extreme fatigue, as if someone has just bombed you out, especially when you're trying to sleep, but you can't?
Fatigue is such a complex issue. I think, Jenna and Dova, maybe we need to put fatigue on as a whole session for later in our wellness series, because there's so many causes of fatigue, and getting to the bottom of it is sometimes really difficult. So, sometimes we can do some things to handle the symptoms of fatigue. If we can get to the bottom of what it is, it's helpful. So, a couple of things that we know, and I think, we may have a session later on sleep disorders, but that's one of the first things to look to for MG. You feel tired and you lie down, and something's keeping you from being able to sleep. And it could be a variety of things. It could be, we talked a few minutes ago about swallowing, but those of us who have whose bulbar muscles are affected by MG, and I'm one of you. are more prone to sleep apnea because you actually have a weak, soft palate. So, it might be important to have a sleep study or to have some analysis of that. And, if you have bulbar muscles, it could be that as you're trying to fall asleep, you actually have breathing issues that wake you right up again. Another thing that can be an issue for us, and I've been a victim too of this, because I take prednisone, and prednisone is a good drug for treating MG, but it's a lot of side effects. What I've heard some of your colleagues call them the devil's tic tacs, because we know we're better, and we also know that the higher dose of prednisone, we may have less MG symptoms, but with that can come insomnia. So, if there could be other medications you're taking, but that one for sure is one where you just, you may feel fatigued, your body is tired, you're tired, and you are lying in bed with racing brain. So, some of that may be the best thing to do, may be to not just lie there and toss and turn and feel frustrated all night long. Put your headphones on if you've got a sleeping partner so you're not bothering them, but listen to an audiobook, listen to soothing music, do something, even if you get up and read for a while, whatever it is. You're exhausted, you can't get to sleep, but try to just not make the worst thing that for keeping you from being able to sleep is the stress about not being able to sleep. So as your stress level rises, that's your fight or flight. So, we're all hardwired for fight or flight, but we don't really, run into a bear that we need to either run from or fight with in our lives. So, but our bodies don't know that. They're still hardwired to give us adrenaline. So when your stress level goes up, your adrenaline levels go up, and then you can't sleep either. So, I'm just giving you a few techniques, but we can certainly talk more about this. And trying to get at the causes of fatigue is really tough, but certainly, again, and I keep coming back to, if you can help your MG get better, sometimes that can really help with that.
Thanks, Nancy. We're going to do one last question. This one is about, is it safe to go to a facility for PT right now?
We're learning a lot more about the virus and about things that we can do to make it safer. So, what are the dangers in PT? Is it crowded? Are you close to others? Is the equipment that they're using, safe and sterile? So, I would answer that question with precautions, if you need it, and yes. So, but with precautions. So, it's perfectly reasonable to call and talk to the PT clinic to ask them what they're doing about COVID. So and they should be able to give you answers. They should say, we certain equipment, so everything is 6 feet apart. We're sterilizing equipment, after every use. It's a little like going to the hairdresser. You are going to be close up there with that physical therapist. They're wearing a mask to protect you. You're wearing a mask to protect them. There's hand washing that happens. So is there some risk? Probably. Nothing with COVID is completely risk-free, but we're learning a lot about precautions like social distancing, like masks, and other ways to be safer. So, and those things seem to really be able to make a difference.
Thank you, Nancy.
Let me also, Jenna, just say if we, it sounds like there've been some questions popping up. You know, I'm happy to answer these, and we can post them in any that I can. I'm not sure I have the answers to everything, certainly, but you know, if you've left a question that was left unanswered, I'll certainly try to get back to you. And Dova, I think you and Jenna can probably figure out a way for us to be able to do that for this and other sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everyone for submitting questions. We're going to follow up with any that we missed or that we weren't able to cover today. And we will definitely circle back with Nancy as well for ones that we need her assistance with answering. This concludes today's webinar. We just wanted to reiterate that MGFA will be hosting this wellness series throughout the summer, so please be on the lookout for additional invites. They will also be posted on the website as well. Thank you all for your time, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
And thank you all for attending, and thank you I'm going to give one last shout out to our sponsors, and to say, you know, the days are coming, all of us, when we're getting back together, but I really have enjoyed getting to know lots of you on Zoom. So this is a way we're really coping and making the best of a situation. And there's been a little bit of a silver lining to meeting people we'd never have met before. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.